On the workshop name. I know some of you are already delivering existing workshops, or the components. Start to be clearer about the title of the workshop or the component of the workshop, the title of the lesson, if you will, or the session. Think about the attitude necessary. The attitude of the learners, the students, the delegates. Your attitude. So, if the teacher walks in, let's say you've got a teacher walks in on a Monday morning, and the teacher walks in like this. Hello everybody, nice to see you all. Have a nice weekend. And then in the staff room says, these students just aren't motivated these days. and really, it's a job of the trainer to go where you want people to go. Okay, I'm quite a laid-back person in one sense, so I think it's about not taking away what your natural, if there is such a natural persona, is. Equally, I'm not suggesting, implying, if I delivered a course and came running in, jumping in the air, and walking over fire and that sort of stuff, you probably think I'm off my head. Because that's, in a natural way, where you could make a point that no one's natural at anything, but the point being, you've got your persona. And I think that, I'm all for making it adaptable. Using and utilising your strengths as well, but equally being aware of your attitude's going to affect. Attitude's contagious. So that's a big thing. So if you're delivering a coaching course, what sort of attitude do you think will be present? The empathy, open-mindedness, all the attributes. If you're delivering a course on customer services, same again, empathy, the open-mindedness, the group themselves, the self-awareness, and so on and so forth. So you start to think what attitude in the group. Okay, there could be resistance in the group. We mentioned just like over-compliance or just general non-compliance, where the person's resistant. He puts the barrier there. All throughout the course, they might put a barrier there. If they've got a barrier there, if they don't buy into what you do, if they don't buy into methodology, would that be a barrier? It could be seen as a barrier. If they're sort of resisting and everything you suggest, they dismiss. I don't buy into that. I don't think that's right, and so on and so forth. Then, is that the right attitude? So really, I think it's quite useful in the start of the course to talk about the expectancy, what you're looking for from them, and in return what you're going to give. I'm going to give you 110% on every program. You know, if you come on one of my courses, I'm going to give you 110%. I'll leave nothing intact. All my experience, I give it a good go. And equally, I expect that the people on the course give it a good go too. And I think that you meet each other halfway, so to speak. Okay. Now, think to me, get in the way. What do you think can affect people's attitudes on the course, generally speaking? What sort of? A number of things really. It could be their perception, what they've heard before, their own ideas. One time I was delivering a course. Give you an example. One time I was delivering this course. It was an induction program. It was for care staff who work with young kids in care, young people in care. And I delivered an induction course. The induction course involved delivering some components of CBT, de-escalation, and so on and so forth, some safeguarding. My remit was education. I delivered some courses too. And I turned up to deliver this program, and there was stuff that was going on in the organisation people were frustrated about. It was related to pay and other things. And I turned up to deliver this course, and they were, moaning about the conditions and all these sort of things. And I thought, you know what? Is that really the right attitude to deliver a course? It's going to make it challenging. And I thought, what's the way to get through to these people? Because they turn up and literally just, and one person struck a chord And because I said, okay, if you could put that to one side for now. I turned up to the group and I said, you know what? I call it the empty, I call it the put all your thoughts in the bag technique. So you put all your thoughts into a bag, into a bin liner. You need a pretty big bin liner for me, and put them outside, pick up whatever you wish. Because there's nothing you can do about it now. Unless it's something, a pressing issue. You're going to pick it up later, yes, for now, we start with a clear mind. And she says, well, I'm struggling to do that. I said, how come? And she was sort of moaning about, she said like a statement, well, how do they expect us to work on the conditions from a pay point of view? I said, well, I don't control that. That's beyond mine. My remit is to deliver this training protocol. That's something you can discuss with the appropriate person at the appropriate time. Sort of kept going on and on and on. I thought, okay. And I just said, you know what? Let's put it this way. Now, God forbid something happened to you and your kids get taken into care. How would you want them treated? And that kind of put her in her tracks. The realization, here you are, moaning, and okay, there could be some justification in it, but there's a time and place to deal with it. And I just said, you know what, if God something to you and your kids were in care, you'd want them treated regardless of what you're getting paid. And that was a way to frame it, to start making them realize, well, you know what, this is what we have at the moment. Let's give it 110%. And I think from that point of view, what's quite useful technique to use is whatever your concerns are, address it to the appropriate person. Okay? If you have a concern on my course about something I can control, come and see me, and I'll do what I can. Okay? To help you with that. You know, rather than sort of backbite at lunchtime, he did this and she did that. I always say, address the concern to the right person, the appropriate person. The concern in that organisation about, hey, that wasn't the time and place to do it. There's an email, you've got other mechanisms, the right person to speak to was directed at the company. Okay, not backbite and compromise the training, which was a necessity to give the young people 100%. You've signed up to do the job, do it to the very best of your ability and do it accordingly. So what I would say is be very clear, and we'll talk about as we go along, any concerns they might have to address it to the appropriate person, because that can sort of derail your course. Okay? We'll talk about that as we go along, how to deal with certain people in certain situations, okay, which is key. And again, remember the knowledge you want to transfer to the group. Focus on the knowledge, what you want to transfer to the group, what you want them to learn. So, someone delivering a course on, say, nutrition might be the nutritional values of certain foods. Someone delivering a course on, say, coaching might be to deliver knowledge on goal setting, on learning styles. Someone delivering a course on therapy might be delivering knowledge on how the brain works or aspects of the brain. So what knowledge you're delivering, but also what do trainees need to know? What do they need to know? And that's a really important point to think about and reflect on. What do they need to know? And we mentioned earlier, it's all good and well making training fun and stimulation and all these sort of things. That's great if you can do that. Wonderful. But we've got to make the focus on what do they need to know. If you're going to train coaches to go out there and coach people, then what do they need to know? If you're going to train people in customer services, then what do they need to know? If you're going to train people on, say, exercise, personal trainers, what do they need to know? It's imperative. The number one objective of any training course is what are they going to learn? What do they go away with? If you enjoy doing something, then we know scientifically there's a better chance of you retaining the knowledge. And you put yourself in a scenario where there's certain things that you like learning, it's not even like learning. You sort of go away, you read it, you really enjoy it, you retain it a lot better. So if you can make it enjoyable, As much as one can make it enjoyable, then it stimulates learning, retention for sure. But equally, there's going to be times when you just got to roll your sleeves up and really dig in and really focus on the skills. The bottom line is that if I was coaching in sport, there's a skill the sports people need to acquire. So it could be, passing a ball. It's all good and well making a coaching session fun. They can't pass the ball in the game. It's to no avail. Okay, if you're delivering presentation skills course, if they don't know how to fundamentally present, then it's all good and well delivering the training for them, but they've got to acquire skill. You're giving a coaching course, it's all good and well making it enjoyable, which is great, but equally if they don't understand how to do the GROW model, a smart process in goal setting, or the coaching wheel of life, whatever, it's all to no avail. If the person turns up for a one-to-one coaching session, they don't have the skill to execute, they don't know how to write a CV, you're delivering employability skills, they don't know how to conduct themselves in an interview, they've not developed a skill, then one could agree that the training hasn't met the target. Okay? So to meet the target, we're going to have clear objectives. So I want you to reinforce your objectives. What do you want your learners to learn? Okay, what are they going to do differently than not doing now? At the close of play, on your course, on the lesson segment. Okay, what are the objectives? The objective could be, sports point of view, to be able to pass the ball. It could be shoot at goal. It could be free throw line. The objective could be in track and field, how to run, arm movement, high knees at the end of the session. In presentation could be how to use their body language, how to project their voice. In coaching could be to be able to do an induction session and a follow-up session and set goals. In employability could be how to write a CV, how to conduct themselves and dress for an interview. So very clear objectives. What will they do? Okay, customer service, a phone call. How they'll handle certain objections. How they'll handle certain situations. So be very clear. Okay. One way for me, I've mentioned before, is quite useful and a bit of food for thought, is think about a component of your course, a segment of your course. And just think for a moment now, one of the components you've written down for your course. Okay? If someone had to stand in for you to deliver that component and you're crossing over, let's say you turned up to deliver a training course and you had to leave, and someone came in for you to cover for you, how would you describe to them in 15 to 30 seconds what aims and objectives need to be met? What is the delivery? So think about it for a moment and just write a pitch. So the scenario is you turn up for a course to deliver the course, the workshop, the segment, and just as you're about to deliver, you've been told that you've got to go to a different job or you're assigned a different task. And someone comes in to stand in for you. How will you explain to them what to deliver? How will you tell them? In the space of, say, 30 seconds. How will you tell them? Remember, clarity is power. This can be a difficult exercise to do because you've got a short time frame to do it, but you've got to be clear in your mind. Okay? in my mind, I come in today, I'm very clear about what I'm going to deliver throughout the day and how I'm going to deliver it. So if someone understanding for me, I could tell them clearly what we're going to deliver and how we'll deliver it. Okay? What to deliver and how to deliver it. And that's a really important thing, to get that clarity in your own mind. And you can work on that and work on components of your course. And one exercise I did in the beginning would be each hour segment, I would have 30 seconds to describe to someone who is standing for me. So what I would do, and I used to do it a lot when I first started teaching in FE, would be if someone is standing for me to do a lesson in, say, biomechanics, in, say, fitness, in, say, a component of, say, hypnotherapy or a component of NLP or CBT, how would I explain to that person how to go about delivering it? What did I have planned in that time frame? I'd break the hour down and I'd find a way to explain that in half an hour, in half a minute, 30 seconds or so, and to get that clarity. If I didn't have the clarity, I'd go over it again. Okay? The time frame is, in reality, that it takes about 2 to 3 times the length of the course to plan for it. So if a segment goes for an hour, it's going to take you about 3 hours to plan it. Unless, obviously, you've done it before. But even if you've done it before, you still go over it, at least equal time frame. So if I've done a course 100 times before, I will still go over an hour, because it's always currency value. Things have changed, you adapt things and so on and so forth, because you're always changing things from that point of view. But for me, if it's new, you're looking at, say, 3 hours planning for the hour delivery, I think, as a ballpark figure. Because you're breaking it down, you're going over it, refining it, then you're thinking, okay, how can I describe this in 30 seconds? Well, I'm delivering, if someone had to stand in for me and deliver it. Okay, how would I ask them and what would the delivery be? Well, this is what I'm doing in that duration. I'm going to be as clear as I possibly can. The knowledge I'm transferring to the group where I want them to be. Okay, I want them to be, and the objective is in the hour for them to know, understand, and demonstrate knowledge of how to use the GROW model. Okay, understand and implement VAK within a lesson plan. Okay, be very clear about what you want to do. Okay, and obviously refine the objectives. So, for example, we can use a SMART acronym. You've probably come across that before. Okay, so specifically, be very specific about what you're going to cover in the objective. Okay, so specifically, what are you going to cover? And that could be a model, the GROW model. It could be how to design your own course. It could be VAK. It could be how to write a CV. It could be how to kick the ball with your non-kicking foot. Okay, specifically, exactly. Okay, it could be the nutritional values of certain types of fruits. Okay, be very specific. How are you going to measure? Okay, and you can ask in your formative assessment a list of open questions, closed questions, probing questions, and we'll go over the questioning techniques as we go along in the course. So the open questions we've been using throughout the whole course, where I put it back to you, and probing questions are quite useful too. We'll go into more details as we go along, because you don't want to get to the end of the lesson and think, well, where is everybody? And that's the benefit of asking questions. Okay, and knowing, is it attainable in that time frame? Okay, is it attainable to teach someone 10 models in half an hour? Well, you've got to think, okay, the way we learn, if we sort of look at the way we learn scientifically, it probably is asking for too much. Okay, so you've got to be very clear. Okay, what can I achieve in that time frame? And that's why it's really important to have a time frame. Okay, have a time frame on the topic, and okay, is it attainable in that time frame? Is it realistic? Okay, this can be a diagnostic. The learners come in with different experience. In this group, everyone's got different experience. Some of you are training and been doing it for a long time. Some are just starting their journey. You know, how do we sort of pitch a course to variable learning? It's a challenge. And we can do individual learning plans. Okay, but there's no reason why, you know, we can't all benefit in equal way, in the sense, okay, how do you do a diagnostic? So when someone comes on your course, how do you know what they know already? Have you got a way of measuring what they already know? They might be a really experienced coach, they might be a really experienced sportsman, or really experienced in customer service. So the key thing is really, the reality is that it's useful to do a diagnostic and send pre-reading, if you will. Now, I can't control whether you do the pre-reading or not. That's your call. But the pre-reading is to bring people to par. Because the closer they are to par, the easier it is to administer the program. In variable programs where people have different levels of learning. So if you've got someone, for example, in customer services who's 19 years of age, who's never had a job before, and they just graduate or just start university, and it's like an evening job, but then you've got someone who's, say, in their 50s who's been in customer services for 30, 40 years. Now, how do I pitch the course? And that's not to say that one person can't learn or be as effective as the other person, but from a training point of view, we can send pre-reading out. They may or may not do the pre-reading, but it's quite useful as a diagnostic. You can make the assumption the person who's been doing it for 30, 40 years has got more ability, but they might have more experience, but not more. The times have changed. Their learning might have came 30 years ago. So if you've done a university course 30 years ago, you've not learned anything since then the chances are you've not progressed in some way, shape or form. So it doesn't mean because you learned something 30 years ago, it's still effective now. Times have changed. Things change all the time. It's a new the world's a different place than it used to be. So that's really important to know that. But the reality is okay, am I being realistic in what I'm, I don't want to use the word realistic to a point. It is useful to know the reality. Someone's got no experience in that area. It's not easy. So it's a requirement of the course. So is there entry requirements for your course? So what I'm getting at here is, do you have an entry requirement? Is it prerequisite? There's some courses that have prerequisites before you go on the course, but equally there's some courses that don't have the prerequisites, but you might have just enter a requirement. It might be quite useful to know. Okay, they might need to have a certain level of key skills, or at least get a level of key skills to do the course itself. So if you're learning a course, if you're doing a module in psychology, statistics, it may be useful to understand a certain level of math. It may be useful. Not mandatory, but it could be useful to understand that when you're doing the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis and so on and so forth. So, okay, so think about that, and teachable, how? Okay, how will I teach it? What resources will I use? Okay, so now let's start to make it real and start to put a draft objective. So choose one of the topics that you expect to deliver training on. So choose a topic. Some of you already got to that point. You've got to that point, some reinforced learning to get more clarity. Be very clear on the topic. It could be confidence skills for interviews. It could be self-esteem. Whatever the topic works for you. It doesn't matter. You've got your own course. It's not for me to say, or you do. I'm only going on what you've told me so far. But very clear on the topic. Okay. We're going live now. this is where you're going to go out there, and this is what you're going to go out there, and what you're already delivering, or if you're not delivering already, this is what you're intending to deliver. Okay, so it could be, the topic could be hypnosis for confidence, NLP for presentation skills, whatever it is that you decide to go away and deliver, employability skills for males, for females, for teenagers, whatever. Okay. You got the topic, and let's sort of reiterate, what do the participants need to know as a result of the session? Okay, what do they need to know as a result of session? Your objectives need to take that into account. Okay. So if I'm teaching a hypnotherapy course, one topic might be hypnotherapy for pain relief. Okay. Pain relief is a big thing in hypnotherapy. Okay. So some of the objectives in one of the components of the delivery would be dissociation. Dissociation being think of the mind, our conscious awareness. If you walk around the lake, for example, and you've got a pebble in your shoe, you may not notice it. We all know sports people who've been injured and carried on playing because they're so absorbed in the playing. And we all know people who've done gardening and get little cuts all over their arms and they don't notice they're there because it's outside their conscious awareness until they focus on it. Distraction. We've all been talking to somebody and the phone goes, you don't recall what you say to that person. But equally, in pain relief, another objective could be that pain is a sign and symptom of something. So when I'm delivering pain relief, it's okay. If the person comes to you for pain relief session, then before you create the anesthesia, before you create the script, the cognitive work that you decide to do, the hypnosis, it would be a good idea to say, have you seen a GP for it first? Okay? Because pain is a sign. So from a safeguarding point of view, someone comes in, I've got this sore back. Okay, have you seen a GP for it first? No, I haven't seen a GP for it first. Well, I suggest you go see a GP for it first. Why? Because it could be biological. I'm not medical. You're not medical. Unless you're medical, it might be a different story. But if you're not medical, well, it could be treated differently. Because you could do pain relief, and it could be a tumour in the person's back, and 6 months later, where do you go from there? So you're thinking key objectives to take into consideration, what they need to know. Okay? Are we okay with that? So you've got the topic, the objectives, what they need to know as a result of your session. You can send them out to the big wide world. What do they need to know? Okay? What should they be able to do by the end of that session that they're not doing now? And if they're doing it now, a different perspective or improve it. Okay, so they come in for one of your courses, at the close of play, on the final day, or during a segment, what should they be able to do? Okay? Remember to set a realistic target. Remember the entry requirement. Remember where they are at the beginning. If they've never done a day's coaching in their life before and have no idea about any model of coaching, we can assume they've done the pre-reading, but we can also fundamentally be aware they may not have done the pre-reading, may not have grasped the pre-reading. So what should they be able to know, and is that realistic in that time frame? In that hour, in that 3 hours, it's really important to grasp that, what should you be able to know in that session, and they're very, very clear. We talked about that before. The attitude at the end of the session, they demonstrate. So it could be at the end of the session they start to develop empathy, more awareness. Okay, so for example, I was delivering one time, a session for staff that worked in the call centre, and I'm well aware it's a very challenging environment, even quite hostile, and I'm well aware what goes on, and I'm not naive and very Pollyanna, positive, and the world's a lovely place, and people are all nice and everything, because people sometimes, they project their own baggage, and they vent their own anger on people, not all the time, sometimes they've got a genuine complaint. But equally, over one time, I thought, before I started making any other suggestions on the course, I looked at the way they were handling things. And there was this young man this guy was on the other end of the phone. And he was like an elderly gentleman who generally didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do. Okay, technologically, it was to do with I won't disclose the company, but it was to do with technology. He didn't know what to do. And this guy was sort of abrupt with him. And the guy generally did not know. It's only easy when you know it, by the way. If you know it's easy. You don't know, you don't know. And you don't know what you know. And he started getting abrupt with him. And I thought, okay, we all have off days. We all do. There's times I mutter things under my breath, and we all do. We're all human beings. And I said to him after, I said, you know what? To look at the attitude, I said, dude, if that was your dad or your granddad, would you like someone speaking to him like that? But it wasn't. But it wasn't. But if it was, whether it wasn't, it was. Another issue for another day. I've got this theory that there's a generation of people now that got this sense of entitlement, but that's going to... Don't get me off on one of them rants, by the way. Don't get me off on the rant, because I won't stop. But the point being is that, okay, the attitude, and that sort of changed the attitude. Okay, if your dad phoned up, your granddad phones up, and he wasn't sure what to do, how would you like him spoken to? Okay, have some empathy. Have some, because we sort of get into this sort of world where we kind of label people, we forget that as a human being, it's a guy who just needs some help. Okay, just take your time. Take a deep breath, and if you're struggling to deal with it, maybe call someone who can. Okay? But there's no need to get all uptight and start being, as you do, condescending with people. There's no need. Okay? There's no need for that. And that's fine. We all have days, where I'm not saying that, everyone's perfect. Every day you're going to be smiley, happy, and that sort of stuff, It's not a problem, not a personal thing. I got a cup of coffee this morning. When I drive in, I get myself a cup of coffee on the way, as you do. It's just part of a little bit of a ritual I've got. And the girl at the store, she literally lumped it in my hand, type thing. And, I was expecting I'm not expecting, as you do, but a thank you would be nice, and so on and so forth, but that's fine. The issue might not be about me. So I'm not going to rush in and start complaining and moaning about it, and so on and so forth, and make a big issue about it. But the point being is that we can take our own stuff on other people. As a trainer, you could be going through stuff. You could be going through a divorce, your kids might be driving up the wall, you might be made threat of redundancy, all three. But it's not the problem. The people who are coming on the course, they deserve 100%, 110%. So from a training point of view, it's really important that, okay, you put your game head on. Okay, get the game head on. Okay, to turn into a plan, we sort of talked about that before, which we're going to do more because we're going to have this course, is okay, and the outline, the example, what activity we'll use for the topic, discussion, role play, how long will it take, okay, and remembering the objective, knowledge, skill, attitude they're going to have in that section, the resources you need for the objective. What would you need resource-wise, okay? The resources you need, the PowerPoint, the computer. Okay, it's like when I deliver talks for organisations externally. They say, "Can you do a talk for us?" They ask me, "What resources do you need?" Okay, and I'll say, "I need a PowerPoint. I need a flip chart." And many times I've turned up. Guess what happens? not there, or it doesn't work. So I have a backup. Thank goodness for backups. There's not a great deal you can do as a backup when the electricity goes out. Delivering a course one time in Thailand, and they had a blackout, complete blackout. The whole island that I was on was blacked out, and the person who was delivering before me didn't do it. I can't do a course in whatever as you do, and that may have been a good point from that point of view. And I just says, okay, do you want to deliver it? You're on 7 o'clock. We've got no electricity. No one's going to come back on. I said, isn't it wonderful, isn't it? I'm about to deliver a course, and the whole island goes into blackout. Not to mention people have to need electricity, other things, but one of my rants thinking, isn't it just great? I'm about to deliver and it goes off. The person before me refused to do it. I said, no, get candles. Now, I know there's health and safety regulations and that sort of stuff, but I addressed it. The risk assessment said it's fine. So I got candles out. Yeah, why not? So I think for me, have backup resources, what you're going to do. I'm not advising you have candles because it might breach health and safety regulation, but I felt in that environment, what the heck? Whack a few candles out. Let's play ball. Let's find virtue in every fold as you do. If nothing else, it might help people be more attentive as you do. I believe there's restaurants somewhere in the world where you go in and it's all dark, and goodness me, the things people do, as you do. Okay, so the time we covered, the topic, the activity you're going to do, the learning outcome, skill, attitude, questions that the people you're working with, open questions. How would you do that? Open it up. We'll go into that in more detail after break, because we're nearly at lunchtime now. And you can use probing questions. You can use closed questions too. Okay, just a mixture of all of them. And your summative assessment could be a question answer, questionnaire, an essay, a practical assessment to measure what they've learned. Remember to make sure that you persuade the delegates in the benefits and sort of reiterate, just reinforce in your head and your mind the real benefits for the training. The real benefits, what it means to them. Okay, the buying. Now we're going to talk about the break is concerns they might have. Okay, what do you think some of the concerns might be? Well, I've got to pick up my kids from school. Is there parking? Okay. There could be a number of concerns. Now, I would certainly write down a whole list of concerns you think they might have and address them. And if they don't if the concern doesn't happen, great. And you're not going to be able to address every concern, but it's really important to create a nice, safe environment for people. Okay. And we can sort of think about, after lunchtime, concerns they might have about attending training. A concern could be the level of people in the group. Will they know more? That could be a concern for some people. Is an experienced group. That can be daunting for some people. If it's a variable group, it might be, wow, these people are so much further than I am. The concern could be that the people aren't up to par. Why am I here? For example. But then it could be a refresher course they need to be there for. The concern could be, there could be a list of different things they might have. They could have something going on in their personal life. That could be an issue they've got to attend to as well. So you control what you can. What I would do when you've got a list of concerns is control what you can and point in the direction they have to go if you can't address that concern. If you can't address the concern, there's not a great deal you can do about it. People ask me sometimes, I run courses around the world, they say, well, we're going to fly in from another part of the world to be there, or another part of the country, we're staying in a certain hotel. What do you think about the hotel? Well, ask them. Because if I tell them the hotel is good or bad, then I don't know what their standard is for good and bad. Does that sort of make sense? So, okay, the concern might be, can I get to from the hotel to the training venue? Yeah, I can give you directions. I'll look them up for you, for sure. I'll look them up for you, give you different travelling roads. But I like to walk sometimes if I'm close to the proximity, if I'm 2-3 miles close to the proximity of the course. But equally saying that, on the other side of things, when I was doing a course in Arizona one time, it was like 1,000,000 degrees, and 2 mile walk may as well be like, so from that point I just jump on bus. And one morning I thought I'm going to walk in, got halfway through, I flagged the bus down, as you do. Another morning it seemed a bit cooler, and I'm walking down to this course that I was on at the time, and some guy was hitting a tree with what looked like a knife. I thought, bloody hell, I'm not walking past him. And I flagged the bus down. The bus driver said to me, he goes, "You're nearly at the venue anyway." And I go, "Well, I'm not going to walk past this dude." Flippin' heck, I said, "This is part of the course," even the therapy course it was. This is part of the test, how I deal with them, as you do, I said, "I'm not in the mood for it this morning." Maybe on the way back I might be in the mood for it, but not now. But there are things to sort of think about. It could be lunch, it could be all these things really. Is there Wi-Fi is a big one these days? Huge. And you might think Wi-Fi, but people have got work to do, they've got things to do, they've got things they've got to catch up on, and that could be an issue. Have you got Wi-Fi? These days, you go to a restaurant, no one cares what's on the menu. Have you got Wi-Fi? Seriously, Italy the other week, sat down a nice restaurant, backdrop is the Amalfi Coast and beautiful, having a nice tonic water as you do. And I can hear a couple come in, tourist, "Have you got Wi-Fi?" Wi-Fi? You flipping got the nicest backdrop in the world. Dude, chill. Have you got Wi-Fi? But hey, so be it. So be it, Here's me on my Wi-Fi doing a little mini motivation, as you do. As you do. Just very briefly, plan what you're going to say at the beginning of training. Case studies, stories, examples are important. I use a lot of scientific research, as you'll know, on the courses I do, because it's useful. I'll use, say, experiments, research papers, and I'll quote that. And it's quite useful to do that. Case studies, stories, examples, they're buying supporting evidence. Scientific evidence, according to who. And it's great doing that because they don't blame you. He said that, not me. One time I quoted Einstein. Someone said it was wrong. I said, blame it on Einstein. Go moan to him. Don't moan to me. It's Einstein's quote. Well, I think it's wrong. Well, go moan to Einstein, as you do. But as usual, have that. I mean, what you say, just general research to back up what we're doing. And you could argue against any hypothesis. And that's fine to have that. But equally, you could say, okay, this is what this says. And it's quite powerful quoting. It's quite powerful, as we'll talk about that after break too. Using quotes is really, really powerful. Such as I said, this research paper said, this story. Okay? We talked about concerns. And really, to sort of wrap up before we go for lunch, describe who you are, your background, and why you're doing the training. Okay, why? This is a really experienced group. You guys have got so much experience and a lot to offer people. I'm not saying to brag, but be prepared to blow your trumpet. You're there for a reason. They're there to listen. Okay? Really, really use that. And that was a wonderful one this morning. It was great the way you sort of quantified that. It was powerful. All of a sudden, everyone's like, wow, let's listen to what he's got to say. And that's really important. Don't undermine yourself. Okay? Just because, you might think people are uncomfortable, don't undermine your experience. Utilize it. Really, really important you do that when you describe why you are. If you've overcome a challenge, you overcome the challenge. That's why you're doing it. The people in your course haven't overcome the challenges. Don't undermine the challenge you overcome, because they wouldn't be there if they could solve their issue. Really important stuff, your why. You're there. You've jumped the fence, so to speak. So that's really important. We're going to do that. So we're going to break for lunch now. We'll break for lunch.